Hello, my name is Raven. In case we haven't met before, I started this page, Alchemy and Movement, to talk about astrology, Pilates, embodiment, and kind of the integration of it all, as well as other spirituality topics and whatever else piques my interest in the moment, which is a lot of things. And I wanted to come on here and talk about Uranus transiting into Gemini and talk a little bit about how that's interacting with the other generational planets in transit and how we're seeing this energy reflected in our own charts as well as in the collective energy. So this is my first kind of free talking video, and I'm going to do my makeup while doing it, like we're on FaceTime. So I hope you enjoy, and let me know if you have any questions. Like, comment, subscribe if you like this, if you like talking to me. And if you don't, then let me know. Hello. Let's talk about Uranus moving from the sign of Taurus after 7 years in this sign, now moving into the sign of Gemini while I do my makeup for work. Uranus is a slow-moving planet. Generational planets take at least a couple years to move, and it's shared by individuals. The placement is shared by individuals who are born within the same generations as you, which varies from planet to planet. So Uranus changes signs every 7 years. And Uranus has to do with innovation. It has to do with independence, originality, liberation. It's associated with the sign Aquarius. So if you think of those modern Aquarian traits, being humanity focused, pushing for collective humanitarian beliefs, things along those lines. I always look so crazy at this step. Things along those lines. It's been bringing that kind of unexpected, liberating energy into the house in your chart ruled by Taurus, which are two very different energies. Taurus is a fixed earth sign. It's very grounded. It's kind of set in its ways. It's devoted. Taurus doesn't really like a whole lot of change, and definitely not unexpected changes. So it's likely that the area of your life in the last 7 years ruled by Taurus has been undergoing some unexpected shifts that essentially just felt out of your control. And although maybe at the time they could have felt like the rug's being pulled out from underneath you, it can also be very liberating, and it can teach us a lot. Since Uranus moved into Taurus 7 years ago, I know I have had a lot of really interesting and symbolic changes occur in my life. I don't need to get into it too much necessarily, but Taurus has to do with themes of money, of sensation in the body, as well as pleasure. It has to do with food and things along those lines. So my own personal chart, I essentially 7 years ago, it started transiting a house in my chart having to do with mental health, also having to do with death, rebirth, transformation, and emotional intimacy. And if you know me personally, I've gone through a lot of shifts with things like that in the last 7 years. 7 years ago, I, at the time, became vegan, which I absolutely support that lifestyle for a lot of people, but it took some self-awareness for me to realize that was restricted, and it was inhibiting my ability to control things in my life. And that was contrasting a whole bunch of other things in my astrology. This also, when this transit happened, 7 years ago, my father unexpectedly passed away, which very much symbolizes the Uranus energy of things being unexpected and unexpected changes. It was transiting the house of my chart, having to do with death. And symbolically, the planets that are associated with both the father, Saturn, and Jupiter, the grandparent, are in my 7th house. So I had the direct symbolism in my chart showing the unexpected of my dad at the beginning of the 7-year transit. He passed in April of 2019, literally when Uranus moved into Taurus, as well as how this impacted my relationship with food, how it restricted.
And now I'm liberated from that. I'm liberated from the need to restrict food or feel that there's not enough,
which can be some Saturn lessons that we see play into it. So anyways, long tangent, that's a way that Uranus in Taurus showed up in my personal chart, and I have been learning a lot from it these last few years. So it would be important to notice, or interesting to notice, if you look to that chart ruled by Taurus in your chart, how would this energy have shown up for you in the last 7 years? What has unexpectedly changed? And although at the time it may have felt as if the rug was swept from underneath you, and the passing of my father absolutely felt that way, and there's so many layers to that grief. However, it has taught me so much. It has strengthened my relationship with my siblings. It has encouraged independence for myself. It has pushed me along in a path of liberating myself from my own struggles with my mental health, or seeking that freedom from structures that felt formerly oppressive to me, especially themes associated with my 8th house. Anyways, long tangent. Check to see where Uranus was just transiting for the last 7 years. And then now, if we shift gears, we look to the house right after that, the house ruled by Gemini. And that is the house that you will be learning about over the next 7 years. Also, just because I know sometimes people can get a little bit nervous about these things, I brought up death and that house in my chart symbolizing death. Just because Uranus may transit your 8th house, it doesn't mean anyone in your life is going to pass away unexpectedly. That was a very specific transit to my life and my soul's purpose and what I'm learning in this world and in this lifetime. It also, just because it's transiting your 8th house, I promise nothing bad is going to happen. Nobody is going to pass away. That was just an example of how symbolic astrology can also show things like this in our actual lives. So if we circle back around to Uranus and Gemini, is all about communication. It's ruled by Mercury. It's an air sign. It's mutable energy. It's masculine. Mutable energy is, I'd like to say, go with the flow. It's a little bit more transient. You can't lock them down into one belief system. You can't lock them down into a specific rigid set of morals, and they're ever changing. Especially with Gemini, I feel like Gemini likes to fill in the gaps in the people around them. They like to see, how can I make everyone feel included? How can I see everyone? That's a really big theme with Gemini and a lot of air signs as well. So with Uranus moving into Gemini, we're not only observing how this is impacting in our personal chart, how it could be bringing in innovation or new ideas or unexpected changes, we're also thinking about how is this influencing the collective. And that's what's always really important with generational planets, is because it is such long-term transits, it can have a really big impact to people than just ourselves. It's a generation that is being influenced specifically by this planet. So with that, there's definitely unexpected things we could see breaking through. And we're seeing a lot of that communication and things kind of being unearthed already. If we think back to when Uranus first transited into Gemini last year briefly, then it moved back to Taurus, that's when some of these other really gritty details having to do with the government and what those individuals and powers have truly been up to, that happened in correspondence to these transits with Uranus and Gemini, and how it influences also with Pluto and Aquarius and what that has to do with the collective. So with that all being said, you're looking to the house in your chart ruled by Gemini to see where it's transiting, and you realize, especially with air sign energy, especially with Gemini energy, the more you try and restrict and control and try and control these changes, the more resistance it builds. So we lean into detaching in the sense that we recognize that we cannot control everything. We cannot control the collective, but by understanding how we are influenced as an individual empowers us to show up for the collective all in all. And this Uranus in Gemini transit is going to be aspecting Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto is power, it's control, it's transformation, it's death, it's rebirth, it's raw, it's real. Aquarius also, like I mentioned earlier, is ruled by Uranus. So this is a very lovely relationship that they're establishing right there. And with this relationship, with Aquarius ruling the collective, ruling humanity, having to do with innovation and new ideas, we're seeing that on the collective level, we're giving that communication back to the people. We are giving power back to the people. We're emboldening the people. And this is further supported by Saturn and Aries and Neptune and Aries. Neptune and Aries stepped in, it removed the rose-colored glasses that it put on us when Neptune was in Pisces for the last 15 years. It removed those rose-colored lenses, and Saturn showed up and was like, hey, let's come up with a plan here. Let's recognize these structures, Saturn's the structures that are not working, especially those having to do with people in power. Saturn is also people of authority. Pluto has to do with power. It'll also call out essentially where those imbalances are. Saturn has so much to do with karma. Pluto has to do with resetting, rebirth, transformation. It's the phoenix. We're giving power back to the people. There's unexpected shifts. Our communication is being empowered here. And we have the structure, the foundation from Saturn and Aries. And then Neptune and Aries is like, I heard somebody else call it, it's like a spiritual warrior. Our eyes are open. Neptune has to do with dreams, fantasy, manifestation, and spirituality. So we're seeing a lot of people essentially open their eyes now with the boldness of the fiery Aries energy. It's opening our eyes. We are being set forth with the intuition. We're being pushed forward with the energy from Aries. Saturn created the plan. Neptune holds the vision. And then we have Pluto bringing the transformation. And then with Uranus and Gemini joining the frickin' party here, then we have we're innovating. We're coming up with new ideas. Things are changing. It's out of our control, but we're in power because we're detached from these structures that have been trying to hold us in place. So very exciting astrology. Aquarius, Aries, Gemini energy is so empowering. It's allowing us to move forward with direction, but it's like we got the vision, we got the structure, we have the communication on board. I am very optimistic as to how this transit is going to unfold. And one last thing, Jupiter is moving into Leo in, when is that? July. So we're also going to have another shift that is going to bring a little bit more fiery energy. And with it being in Leo, my hope is that that's going to give us a little bit more of the bravery to expand. Jupiter expands. And that is all of the generational planets that have been making the transits. Thank you guys so much for joining. I hope you enjoyed hearing me talk a little bit more freely. If you have questions about anything, please don't hesitate to let me know, whether you comment on this or just send me a message privately on one of my social medias. I would love to answer it. And sometimes those questions even kind of deepen these kind of downloads that I receive. So I would love that. Thank you for joining, and I hope to see you soon.